I do remember the time that I did get a diagnosis. So I guess even when I got to that point of diagnosis, I was still under the belief that the diagnosis would lead to, here's the clear answer, here's the treatment we provide, and this was what will fix it. So for many months in those initial phases, I was still living with the idea that I'd wake up tomorrow and I'd be able to see and it would be fine and I wouldn't have to contemplate a life without sight.
We like to think that everything around us is designed with us in mind. The signs, the texture of the ground, the shape of benches, the sharp corners of a table, or even the water fountain itself. Now, imagine you couldn't see any of them. It makes you pause and wonder, who is really included in the word us? This is Dan Searle. He's 38 years old and grew up loving sports. He enjoys traveling, watching the Eurovision Song Contest, and having a good barbecue, though he prefers not to be the one doing the cooking. When Dan was 16, he lost most of his vision. The cells in his eyes that send signals to the brain stopped working. It was all due to a rare genetic condition called Leber's optic neuropathy.
It literally happened over my 16th birthday. So I used to play a lot of tennis and squash, and that was really important to my life. And I found that it was getting harder and harder to see the ball from week to week. And that was really tough for me to adjust to. But I think the reality is, in those early stages, I was very aware of the fact that more and more people these days wear glasses. I just assumed that I would get glasses and that would solve everything. So it was quite a shock when I started going to doctors and ophthalmologists and found that magnification didn't do anything and I couldn't get a definitive diagnosis straight away.
He was on his learner's license at the time, working towards the big P's that would let him drive on his own. But months after his diagnosis, still hoping for some sort of treatment, his parents finally told him the truth. This wasn't a condition he could ever recover from.
It was tough for me that I felt like sometimes I was excluded from things and I felt like I was treated as a different person, which was really hard for me because I feel like I was the same person, I just couldn't see anymore. I was very much a visual learner, so I had to learn to do things differently, rely on audio and tactile feedback to learn things. But it wasn't just that. I think it's more about learning to adjust to a different identity. Like, as I said, being outdoors, playing sport, that was such a big part of my identity. And I thought that I'd had that suddenly ripped away from me. And that was really, really hard for me.
Heading into his final years of high school, around year 10, Dan began using a cane now and then. By the time he was moving out to start university, studying to become a physiotherapist, the cane had become a full-time thing. That's when getting the idea of getting a guide dog came up. But for Dan, who had just gotten the hang of life with a cane, the decision to take on a dog wasn't made lightly.
Growing up on a farm, I've always been around dogs and I love dogs, so loved the idea of being with a dog. But I think there was still this guilt for me that I felt like I was taking a dog away from someone who maybe deserved it more than I did. So when I worked through that process and understood the benefits that it could have to me, and that's why they're there, and put in my application, well, I'm so glad I did. Receiving my first dog was one of the best times of my life, and he made such a huge difference to me and my confidence in what was a critical time in my young adulthood.
Since losing his eyesight over 20 years ago, Dan has had 3 guide dogs. But finding the right one isn't as easy as people might think. Things like environment, lifestyle, and personality all have to be considered. The guide dog alongside Dan today is Quinlan, a 3-year-old Labrador.
Good boy, where's it? One seat. Good boy, keep looking. Come on, one seat. Good boy, one seat. One seat. Good boy, one seat. One seat. Ah,
Wow, that's amazing.
You were so clever. You found a seat. I don't have a treat for you. I'm so sorry.
They are very fast learners. If you go somewhere once, he will know to go back there again and again and again. So if you walked with me around home, you could probably easily tell the places I go to regularly because he will look to pull into them. Go, oh, is this where you want to go, Dana? You want more coffee? You very much become in sync and a part of each other's life, and he knows when I'm relaxed, he can relax, and when he's relaxed, I'm relaxed. And obviously, as I say, he wants to do the right thing too, and he wants to make you happy and keep you safe. So he's excited if he does the right thing, and then he almost seems like he feels stressed if he hasn't got it perfect. So it is an amazing bond and hard to explain how close that becomes.
He is my third guide dog. So Bear was my first dog. He was a chocolate Labrador, and he will always have a special place in my heart, being my first guide dog. I think you can't imagine the change that it makes to your life until you've been through that experience and the bond that you develop. And again, as I was still adjusting to my sight loss and that young adulthood, he just played a huge role in my life. And I don't think any dog will ever quite match that. They've all been special. Frodo was my second dog. He is a black lab. He's still with me now. He's retired. He's 11 years old. And Quinlan, my third guide dog, has been working with me now for about 9 months.
Life with the guide dog suits Dan. He's taught Quinlan useful commands that help him feel more confident, navigating different places. But it's also come with challenges. There have been times when he was denied entry into public spaces with his guide dog, despite it being illegal to do so.
I have recently had some experience with a pub, and it was very distressing. So it was for me when I was out with friends and I was stopped at the door and told that I couldn't bring the dog in there by the security person at the front of the venue. And it's a horrible feeling. It's not just the fact that you feel rejected, it's then when you're out with friends, you feel like you're letting them down. And I think it gets to a point, even if you do manage to explain the law and that it's illegal to refuse you and you end up in the venue, you don't feel welcomed anymore and you don't really want to be there and you don't really want to spend your money there anymore. So it's a really demoralising experience, and no one wants to have to go through that.
Another issue has been people being afraid to approach him, mostly within the hospitality industry. Maybe they're worried about saying or doing the wrong thing. He's not sure. But he likes to think that it comes from a place of ignorance.
I'll be out dining with friends and the staff will ask the person that I'm with, what would he like to drink or what will he have for dinner or something like that. That's bizarre to me because I can hear, I can speak, I'm a reasonably intelligent person, I like to think. But I guess, again, I like to think it just comes from a place of ignorance. People don't deliberately do something with malicious intent. So I think just reassuring people, the best way is to just talk to them directly. If you're unsure of how to help me or assist me, just ask me. I can speak for myself and I'm more than happy to do so. So the best thing you can always do is introduce yourself. So you might say, hi Dan, it's so-and-so from blah, blah, blah. I'm here for XYZ. How can I assist you today? That's just treating me with dignity and respect like anyone else. But the fact that you introduce yourself to me, I know you're speaking to me, I know where you're from, I know you're a trusted person. If you've given me then your name, I can easily speak back to you and know who I'm talking to. So those little things can make a huge difference to me.
But not all problems are about interactions. Sometimes it's just how things are set up around us or the way objects are designed. It could be things like tables or chairs blocking footpaths. sharp corners on furniture, poor lighting in a room, or even temporary construction.
I think the big thing is having that clear sort of boundary or distinct change in surface between what's the walking path and what's the garden areas. So having something texturally that is easy to feel and distinguish between the concrete paths and the grass of the boundary, or as you said, even just something like that simple metal strip can help, like someone that might use a cane to be able to navigate, to know where to get around that environment. Things like that can make a big difference. And keeping those surfaces level makes it a lot easier, so you can be confident that there's not going to be a sudden trip hazard. Where you've got footpaths, ensuring that they remain clear. I've come into some spaces like this where there might be an event on or something, so they use like an A-frame or something in the middle of a footpath to direct people somewhere, which that's nice that we're trying to direct people somewhere, but then that in itself creates a barrier or an obstacle that presents a challenge to someone like myself.
In 2008, Dan's relationship with Guide Dogs New South Wales, ACT, changed from being a client to becoming a worker. Today, he's a disability advocate and community mobilizer with them, working as part of the social change team.
Dan sits in a white studio and speaks to camera.
Hi, my name's Dan and I work for Guide Dogs New South Wales ACT. We're here today to talk about our online modules assisting people with blindness or low vision.
His job is to help people in the community develop the skills they need to get involved in campaigns that make society more inclusive. He's passionate about advocacy, access and inclusion, and is part of a campaign called Access Means Business. This campaign is run by Guide Dogs New South Wales ACT in partnership with the City of Sydney.
We're offering free training for any hospitality staff in Sydney LGA. That's with thanks to a grant from Sydney City Council. So there is free online training available. It's for assisting people with blindness or low vision. So it's roughly 20 to 30 minutes, so very short, not a big time demand. And we'll just help give you some really simple tips on how to communicate effectively, how to describe a space, or how to guide someone. So those little things that will make a big difference in giving someone confidence on how to appropriately interact. We're trying to educate businesses and the community around the idea that when we talk about access or inclusion, it doesn't have to mean a big renovation. I think people get scared anytime you start talking about access, that they think they've got to spend tens of thousands of dollars. So we want to help sort of break a little bit of that barrier, that being more inclusive can be very simple things. I think the biggest thing you can do is talk directly to people, ask people with a disability, approach them, speak directly to them. For me, just something as simple as introducing yourself when you see that person helps reassure me that you are a trusted person. If you're a member of that business, then I know that you can offer me some assistance. If you don't know how to assist the person, just simply ask them, is there something you need? Am I able to assist you? Things like that make a huge difference. And that's something simple and free that anyone can do.
And what keeps him motivated, you ask? He says he's lucky to have a voice and that it's personal.
I'm lucky to have had access to a good education. I'm lucky to be able to speak in a way that allows me to express my needs in an accessible format for other people to know what changes they can and can't make. I think having worked as a physiotherapist in the chronic health space, I've primarily worked with people with chronic pain and with mental health. I think I saw a lot of the things, there was barriers to what I could do, what limitations there were. Like I could help get people so far, I could help them with their physical health, but there were still challenges that limited their ability to fully interact with society that were beyond my control and that were even beyond their control, were more about societal issues. So whilst I could make some difference at an individual level, there were still societal barriers that I couldn't address as an individual clinician. So I was really motivated to get into that systemic change space. So part of the social change team with guide dogs, where I can make a bigger impact at that systemic level.
Today, when Dan looks back to when he was 16 and losing his sight, he remembers having to relearn how to navigate life. For him, one of the biggest challenges was accepting that he might need to do things differently. But the most important lesson was realizing that it's okay to ask for help. And that's not about having a disability. Everyone needs help at some point in their life.
I remember one time when I got really upset that I'd failed to do something that I thought was a simple task and I should have been able to do okay. And a friend who has sight loss as well said to me that even brain surgeons need to get a plumber around to fix with their plumbing. And I think just trying to highlight the fact that no matter who you are, you've got strengths, and at one point you'll be the person asking for help, at other points you'll be the person giving help. So I'm really excited now that in my role, I can have the opportunity to give back and help other people in the way that so many other people have helped me. It's funny, like I consider myself extremely lucky to have had 16 years of sight, and I'm really lucky that I grew up on a farm and I know what different animals look like. I know what different parts of the world look like. I've been able to see my mum and dad before, and those are things that I don't take for granted. I'm really lucky that I've had those opportunities. But now being 38 years old and being 20 years plus since it happened, it sort of gets to a point where I can't grasp onto that person anymore. I sort of see themselves as always almost two distinct parts of my life and parts of my identity. I sometimes forget the fact that I can't see, which I appreciate sounds silly, but my life as it is now is the life I'm used to. I don't envisage a way of doing things differently. So.
Hi, I'm Malin.
And I'm Lucy.
Thanks for watching and listening to 7 News Spectrum.
If you have a story that you think would make a good episode, let us know at 7newspodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks.